Good evening, Facebook friends and family. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, so that's Couch Conversations with the Doctors. First of all, we just want to say Happy New Year to everyone. The Lord has blessed us to be able to make it another circle around the world, and we are here once again saying Happy New Year to each of you and each of you that are watching. So we're going to ask you to come on in, and to remember to share, and to start your watch parties and to come right on into Couch Conversations with the Doctor. So once again, I just want to say good evening to Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, and to all of our social media families. Welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where true health is wealth. I see we have a few people signing in. Hey, Carrie Steele. Hey, Karen Yarbrough and Alderman Pat Dow. Thank you guys so much for being here. I see text messages that are coming in as well. We got your questions. We're going to talk about those. And for the rest of you who have some questions, remember just to jot those in the chat box. We're going to be talking back and forth with you tonight, as always, on Couch Conversations with the Doctors. We're going to go around as we usually do, and we have a special guest that's going to pop in with us tonight from the Chicago Reader and the Crusader, formerly of the Defender. He's going to pop in with us really quickly and have just a little conversation and some thoughts and some words that he wants to share, because he wants to make sure that he's reporting really good stuff when it comes to the COVID vaccine and coronavirus, and just making sure that everyone is healthy. So we're going to have William Rogers. I think I see him there. William,
yeah, I'm here.
That's William. So William is going to check in because he wants to make sure that he gets, when he writes his articles, he wants to make sure that all of that is correct and in that newspaper, and that we keep everybody covered. And he has some actually good questions that we talked about earlier on today. So once again, we're going to go around and we're going to introduce ourselves to each and every one of you. And remember to share, and to start those watch parties. First of all, I see that I have my co-worker here with me. The congressman is in D.C. and they were having some votes tonight, so he's going to try to make it back in with us. But if he doesn't, he says that he knows that the doctors will answer your questions. So to my co-worker that's here, that's Dr. Douglas Graham. Doug, would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, good evening. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs of Chicago for about 30 years. Last year, I joined the congressman in his office as a congressional fellow. I'm doing the same this year. I'm going to try and answer your questions if I can. I'm glad you're here.
Wonderful. I see Deborah Higgins has got here and she's in. And remember, start those watch parties and share. Dr. Terry Mason, the world-renowned urologist, is here with us on this evening. Dr. Terry Mason, introduce yourself to the people.
Why, of course.
Mute yourself first.
I should be unmuted. Can you hear me? Yeah, so my name is Dr. Terry Mason. I am a retired urologist after 26 years, but now I've been working in public health for probably the last 15 or so. And I'm grateful to be here and to be supportive of the congressman in his efforts to make certain that his constituents are well informed. And I'm proud to be here with my colleagues, and we all hope to in some way enlighten you to do better.
Wonderful. I see we have the man who says that I usually threaten him to be here, but he's an awesome physician. That's Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. James Miller, and I have retired from clinical medicine, but I still do teaching and mentoring and working with the young folks in our community. And I'm here tonight to participate and to do what I can to answer questions, and hopefully, my goal is to make our community a healthier community. So whatever I can do and say to towards that end, I'm here to do that.
So as you can see, audience, we have great co-hosts who are here with us on this evening, as always, who are sharing that health is wealth. I want to say hey to Kathleen Jackson, to my next co-host, who is an awesome physician, family doctor, and a weight loss guru. He also kind of thinks he's a chef. I don't really know, but yeah, he posts those. I need to know if he's really cooking that. That's Dr. Tony Hampton. Dr. Hampton, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone here?
All right, thank you, Nikki. I am a family doctor. I work with Advocate Aurora Healthcare, and I don't mind hanging with retired doctors. That's why I'm here, so I can learn something. But, so I'm going to learn from them just like you guys. And what better time than now to learn the value of self-care? So you know, anybody that's chiming in right now is you're putting your health as a priority. We appreciate that. And I always get inspired when the new year comes. I hope that tonight you're inspired to live a healthier life, and I hope we can help you in that regard.
Wonderful, wonderful. And for those of you who are texting and sending messages asking, where is Dr. Pete? Tonight, Dr. Pete couldn't make it. He'll definitely be here on next Monday. And he's probably watching, so you better be listening. But he couldn't be here with us on tonight. But he is definitely here with us in spirit, and he will be here next Monday. So send your prayers towards Dr. Pete and see him on next Monday. To our special guest that we have here with us on tonight, Mr. William Rogers of the Chicago Reader and also of the Crusader, formerly one of the pieces of glue that held that Chicago Defender together. William Rogers, if you can please just share a little introduction about yourself with our viewers.
Cool. Thank you, Nikki, for taking time to send me that link. Hello, everyone. Thank you for spending time with us. But correction, I'm not from the news side of the Reader. I am the advertising and marketing, new business development, and small profit development. And the reason I was asked if I can come on board, because I really wanted to connect with everyone to the questions that I've had, as well a lot of questions that a lot of my clients are asking me, a lot of my friends in the industry, and we just threw it out there for, like, if you do the Moderna vaccination, can I just go and get Pfizer if I like Pfizer, or can I mix it up? Or you know, how do I know what's the better vaccine that's out there when you have something that says 95 to 98%, then you have something that says 92 to 95%. We all want to get the best one. So there is a lot of miscommunication out there. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of fears. My Uber driver, who is from Mexico, she relayed a lot of fears that the Hispanic community has been addressing due to government changing your DNA till they're tracking you. You know, why shall I do the vaccine? So I want to come together to get to know everyone, especially Advocate Aurora, because they really have a footprint in Chicago. How can we as media, especially the advertising side, work with you all to create some type of print piece with a digital component that would hit those communities that are not technologically savvy now that we're into this online digital age? We're missing a whole population due to lack of communication. And my job, and I don't just represent the Reader is my primary job, but I also represent the Reader, the Crusader, La Raza, Hypercare, the Korean Times, Streetwise, Windy City Times for the LGBT community, the Southside Weekly, Southside Drive, which handles Real Men Cooks charities, the Bronzeville Life, who oversees the Bud Billiken Parade, Black Women's Expo for Chicago and Atlanta for 26 years, Being Single Magazine online, the First Lady's Health Initiative, which is 64 pastor wives, the Joliet Weekly Times, and on the west side, I got the Austin Garfield Lawndale Voice with the Wednesday Journal for Oak Park, River Forest, Forest Park, Riverside, Brookfield, Landmark. So I'm kind of connected with all the medias, and I'm fortunate enough that a lot of these clients trust me to be their independent representative, which a lot of them don't have. So I'm here representing all of those entities to find out where is the budget for my pullout or my ad campaign to address the top 50 questions or fears that's out there in the community.
All right, Will. So first of all, you made me tired. You made me tired because you're doing so much. But I
Well,
appreciate
I got my
all
pillow here.
that
I'm about to go to
you
sleep with all them places you work.
hey, I realize time is well, you know, as a sales rep, if someone isn't spending money with the black and brown media, then I represent the mixed diversity media. But either way it goes, you're gonna have to come across my desk.
Amen.
Well, that is
I'm
wonderful.
down.
I
I'm down.
love all the representation that you're doing and the fact that you are keeping people abreast of what is necessary to be done. I want to give a great shout out to my really good girlfriend, Mary Green, who is the founder and president of the Black Women's Expo, and also to all of the ministers' wives, being a pastor's daughter and being a part of that initiative just as well. And my good friend, Tracy, who is also doing tons of things with us. We want to give them shouts out. So let me first be really clear. William is here to ask some questions that he's been asked by a lot of his clientele that's there. William is here to aid, but this is a congressional meeting, which is sponsored by the Congress, discuss budget, and we do not actually forward people to different budgeting. We always keep it open for everyone. So I just want to make that really clear so we're not crossing the line of congressional ethics. So know that you can always meet and have conversation afterwards. But with the congressional meeting, we do not discuss budgets in any kind of way at all with anyone. So, I don't know. I want to say hey to Kathleen Jackson, who says, hello, Will. She was speaking to you directly. Kathleen Jackson is saying hey to Zar. Thanks, Zar. To Sean.
Thank you.
And to Yolanda Williams. Hey, Yolanda, miss you so much, so much. So I don't know, Dr. Hanson, tell me, do you want to get right into?
I think I'll start the conversation by answering one of William's questions, which was, which vaccine, right?
Oh, sure.
I think that we would all agree the one you can get is the best vaccine. That's number one. So I got Pfizer a week ago, and when I got my Pfizer vaccine, like the Congressman got his vaccine, yeah, I was a little, the vaccine itself didn't bother me. I didn't feel anything. That night, I did get a little sore in my arm. The next day, but it was just like any other vaccine. It didn't really do much in terms of making me not feel well. But so if you look at the data, the Moderna vaccine it may be slightly more effective, but you got to be careful because when you're going from 90% to 95%, they're probably about the same. Now, so if you're trying to figure what's the best vaccine, you could argue that's it. But as we get more and more people vaccinated, I think the data will provide more clarity. What I like about the Moderna vaccine with the 30,000 or so people that got it, once they got up to about 95 people who tested positive, so these are blinded studies, nobody knows if they got the vaccine or not. But once they got to 95 positive people, then they looked at, well, who are these people? Are they vaccinated people or not? And they found that 90 of them, of the 95, were not vaccinated, and 5 were vaccinated. So only 5 versus 90 who actually got it. And of the 90 who got it, 11 ended up in the hospital. And of the 5 who got it, 0 ended up in the hospital. So when you think about that vaccine in terms of effectiveness, you got 0 people going to the hospital, only 5 out of the big number who got it. And then when they got it, they didn't get that sick. So my point is, if I'm in a situation, I'm not going to wait for Moderna or Pfizer or AstraZeneca. I'm going to get the vaccine that I can get because ultimately they all have different advantages. One thing I like about AstraZeneca is that although you're going to hear numbers like it's 75% effective, it's not going to sound as impressive. But what's really impressive is the cost. It's like $2 to $3, right? Where the other 2 vaccines cost more. So when you think about like rural communities, when you think about other countries that struggle financially, AstraZeneca is going to be a slam dunk because it's going to reach more people. And ultimately, I think that's in the long haul going to be a very effective strategy. So I think there's a lot to say about this, but for right now, we are just trying to get more people vaccinated. UK and Europe are talking about, they're already talking about we're gonna do 3 months instead of 3 weeks separation between the first and the second dose, because it's more important to give more people the first dose than to give less people 2 doses. So maybe the United States will do that as well. But just in general, the vaccine that you have access to is the best vaccine, because you're going to greatly reduce your risk for all of these symptoms that we keep hearing about over and over again.
All right, great. And don't forget, Johnson & Johnson's vaccine should be coming out shortly too. So we have great companies that are working on great things. And you know what's the most important? You got options, right? You got tons of options. So just make sure you get one.
Yeah.
How about one of those companies? Get one of the companies.
Well, I think
you can't go without getting it. You got to get it. That's what's most important. Dr. Hampton, we'll just go right into these questions.
Yeah.
One of our, Sister Bonnie, I see Bonnie Smetley has made her way in. One of the questions says, the news stated that our numbers in COVID positive jumped 1.8% in 1 week. This is startling to me, friends, and fans. Why is this happening? And what can we do to stop it? Well, don't all jump at it at once.
Well,
go ahead, Douglas.
One of the reasons that this is happening is because of travel. And this is the season where we're traveling, we're together, we're in groups, we're passing through the train station, the bus station, going to airports, we're taking taxis and Ubers. We might be going out to dinner. And every time that we leave our homes and go to a new place, we run the risk of being in contact with the virus. Many people have this and don't know that they have it. So you could be saying hello to them, they don't look sick, and the next thing you know, you've got the virus and you're giving it to somebody else. So this is happening because we're not social distancing and we're not wearing masks. And we're doing more socializing, more traveling than we usually do. And this is predicted.
Yeah.
And we were warned about this many, many months ago. And the only way to stop it is to social distance, is to wear masks, is to wash your hands, and to be careful until we've got a high number of people vaccinated.
Yeah.
Put you in a mask.
And it's very difficult to convince people who we have a lot of fatigue related to this issue. We're tired of wearing masks. We're tired of not being around family. And what I hear over and over again is, well, I'm just going to gather with my immediate family.
Yeah.
But they're not immediate people that live in your home. And I can personalize it. We had a family member recently who was exposed to a coworker who was positive. Until that occurred, I was struggling to get my family to not gather. I mean, they simply it's just us. What's the problem? Well, us don't live in the same household. And what people don't understand is not just traveling to Vegas. And my barber told me about a 45 and a 55-year-old who traveled to Vegas, and they're both dead now. And they seemed okay, but why are you traveling to Vegas during a pandemic? I mean, don't get me wrong, I want Vegas to survive, but it just doesn't make a logical sense. You want to be as safe as possible, and what you want to do is be rational. Everybody in the family is just as vulnerable as everybody else on the planet. So we have to be smart, and I understand it's painful and it's a struggle. We don't have Dr. Cersei here tonight to talk about the psychological effect, but we have to not let this fatigue make us make poor decisions. And I think that's what people are doing. The seasonality of this illness is, things happen during the winter anyway. And those spikes that you keep seeing after the holidays are a reflection of what Dr. Graham said. It's an unnecessary gathering. So as we continue to think about what's coming, I mean, we still got things that may come before you get vaccinated, even after. Let's start making better decisions about gathering. You will have plenty of years left on the planet to gather, and you don't have to do it now. So I know it's hard, but that's just the right thing to do. And how would you feel if you've gathered with somebody who just happens to be more vulnerable? You just happen to give it to them because you didn't have symptoms, and they perish. what would that feel like for the rest of your life when you had a choice to make in that moment? So I'm just asking you to really be thoughtful about those decisions.
Yeah. I think that just to add a couple little things is that this is a time of continued sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yes, we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. However, we are not at the end of the tunnel, and we're not out of. We won't be out of trouble until we get through this this additional space and get to the end of the tunnel. That means that by that we'll get to the end of the tunnel when a certain percentage of the population has been vaccinated and therefore are not as likely to be infected or to share the virus with other folks. And so, so again, patience. That's the key, and mitigation. Patience and mitigation. I think the biggest thing right now is people having that continued patience, because the patient, when Dr. Tony is saying that people are getting tired, their patience is getting short. They're running out of patience, and so we have to somehow be able to grab that additional patient and to hold out until we get a little bit further along in this journey.
You know, I always want to make the point too, is that while we're going through our patients and while we're waiting on getting our vaccine, or getting it later or whenever you're going to get it, one of the things I still want to remind us, because we're still in what I call the season of gluttony, which started on Thanksgiving Day and goes all the way through to just past New Year's. But we need to also remember that we need to do better in that regard, because people who have underlying conditions like diabetes or heart disease or obesity don't do as well if you get COVID as those who do not. So you want to, this is also part of your COVID protection program, is to try to eat better. And I know it's been difficult over these last few weeks and with all the parties and everything, but please, try to do better, because the better shape you're in, that if you should happen to get COVID, you should do better. And also to remember your vitamin D3 supplementation. You can get it at almost any drugstore. You can get it, and it's not that expensive. I always recommend, if you can, to get a vitamin, see your doctor and get a vitamin D3 level drawn so you know where you are. And then you could be guided about how much you may want to take and get that checked to make sure that it's increasing. So those are the things that I think are also very important. And I'm very sedate, as you can see this evening.
So, Dr. Mason, can you go into depth just a little bit about the vitamin D3? What its purpose actually is in your body, and why is it so important to have it? Because if you look at the numbers of some of the fatalities that have come along with COVID, that was so common in a lot of those people who have made the transition with having low vitamin D3.
Yeah, well, vitamin D, depending on how you look at it, some people even look at vitamin D as a hormone. But vitamin D plays some very important roles in the inflammatory process. And also it plays important roles because we noted that among men who had prostate cancer, because that study was done over at County Hospital and also at Northwestern, that men who had low vitamin D levels were more likely to have prostate cancer. And there is some data that suggests that colon cancer may be also impacted. So vitamin D3 is a vitamin that is made, and the conversion to the active form of vitamin D3 happens in the skin. And one of the things you need in order for that conversion to take place is sunlight. Yeah. And so this time of year, we're not out, and you need about 15 minutes of sunlight on your skin directly in order to help make the vitamin D3. And those of us who are darker need a little bit more, because our dark skin actually is there to help block some of the harmful rays of the sun, but also we still need those rays to do the vitamin D3 conversion. So it's a process that involves our liver, our kidney, and our skin, and of course we have to take in the vitamin D3. So it's important, and it's not just for COVID; it's for a number of things.
Yeah.
So I would implore you to be taking, and again, see your physician if you can. Get a vitamin D3 level, and perhaps maybe Dr. Miller or Dr. Hampton may want to talk, since I don't do that, but see your doctor, get the level, and also get your check to make sure you other things. You know, there are other primary things that the primary care doctors draw, like your cholesterol levels and everything else, but this should be one of the things. And I'll leave Dr. Hampton or Dr. Miller or Dr. Graham to comment on that.
Yeah, well, I think that as we are, obviously everybody been inundated with the COVID situation, and it's certainly very, very important. However, there are a lot of other diseases. There are a lot of other problems that we need to be concerned about in terms of being healthy, and we need to make certain that we pay attention to those things. As the reports have gone out and start talking about communities that seem to be at increased risk, part of those problems is that because we're talking about sick folks. When you're sick, you just don't do as well when you get an infection or when you get other diseases. And so being healthy is very important in terms of preventing you from getting sick. That's sort of a strange way to put it, but the healthier you are, the better off you are going to be able to do in terms of tolerating whatever it is that you're introduced to that is not a good condition or good thing to happen. If your body is healthy, you'll be able to tolerate and be able to fight it off a bit better than if you're already sick and you already have a number of other diseases. So I think that, whereas it may be a little bit more difficult during this past year of getting some of the routine things that you have been getting in the past, but please don't forget about those things. Don't forget about getting your colonoscopies if that's indicated. Don't forget about getting the mammogram. Don't forget about those things that you need to be doing to prevent other kinds of disease that if they get you, they can also cause a big problem for you.
And I would only add that I think anybody that knows me, myself, Dr. Mason, etc., we're all about optimizing your health through nutrition, so I want to, and that's important. In fact, some people would argue with me on Twitter that that's the most important thing, and I don't disagree, except that, and you can say, well, vitamin D is an enhancer. It really enhances your immune function, right? So vitamin D is important. So I'm not going to ever discount that. That's like my life's work. But wouldn't it make just as much sense to, when you have an opportunity to prepare your body for a specific organism that we know what it is, and we create antibodies to that in advance? Because those T cells that the vitamin D, those fighter T cells, that's part of the immune system that vitamin D will enhance, why not just make antibodies so that the T cells will then have troops that can fight the war alongside them? Because now what Dr. Miller is speaking to is that you want to be as healthy as possible and not have chronic disease or have chronic diseases that are under control. So that person is even more likely to benefit from a vaccine because their immune systems are already not optimal. So why not add some additional protection by getting an antibody in your body that'll know how to identify COVID right away and attack it? So we'll sit here all day and tell you that eating healthy is important. We'll tell you that vitamin D is important, but the vaccine is an absolute slam dunk. And I would argue is the most important thing you can do, because that's, I have seen people in my practice who were healthy, like I try to be, and they didn't do well with COVID. So why put yourself behind the 8 ball and find yourself compromised when you have a gift from somebody above that's right in front of you? All these great doctors and scientists have come up with, and it's just, so I just want to emphasize that what I would say, do all of the above.
Yeah.
Give yourself a fighting chance, but do not deny yourself what's likely the most effective way to fight this, which is get that antibody going. And then while you're doing it, you want to, because your immune system is not going to function well if you're eating garbage, right? So in order for it to respond to the vaccine, you got to be healthy. So just want to add that.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into our next question. But quickly, I want to say hey to Karen Peterson, who's here. And Yolanda, I love your statement, but I don't want this to happen. But Yolanda It's saying if it snows really bad, everyone will stay. And that may be true, but let's hope it don't snow really bad. Let's hope that's not it. But thank you so much, Yolanda. You know, our next question says, "Hey everyone, I'm an African American male, age 48, and I'm 3 months post COVID. I work in law enforcement, which keeps me very active. I work out 3 times a week. However, since COVID and currently 3 months post COVID, I am still having difficulty breathing.
Mm.
I'm very winded. I'm very concerned. Any advice?"
Man, I know in my practice, I see this every single day. And I've heard statistics in Italy that says 80% of the people who are exposed to COVID and get it are still having symptoms. I've heard now in London, the numbers are maybe 10 or 20%. Overall, I'm hearing that 1 out of 3 people who get COVID are going to have fatigue that persists and shortness of breath and chest pain and I can't taste and I'm not sleeping right. And all that inflammation that was caused is persisting. Now, going back to the vaccine, am I going to worry about a sore arm or be at risk for getting all of these symptoms that for some people have not gone away? Now, imagine this. What happens if 1 out of 3 people are having this chronic fatigue? This is really like a chronic fatigue, but post-COVID fatigue syndrome, whatever you want to call it. Imagine if those people have these symptoms a year from now. Imagine if they have it 2 years from now. And all they had to do is get a vaccine. So what I'm saying, guys, is that that's a problem. So I think earlier, Dr. Mason mentioned vitamin D. I would definitely recommend that. I would recommend plenty. I come up with this NEST acronym because it's about nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how you think. That's why I don't watch the news. I don't want to think all these negative thoughts. William Rogers, you better hear from me. I don't have time for that because it's stressing me out. And I don't want to have chest pain because of the stress. I've always told patients to consider N-acetylcysteine. That's a really good, oxidative stress reducer. Oxidative stress is when you have a lot of inflammation and all that. I don't want to get into all of that, but I think that's a good, remember, NAC, N-acetylcysteine. I tell my patients to think about zinc. So I think what you do is you optimize yourself by getting rest, reducing stress, and keep your fingers crossed. But if you do those things, you'll give your body a fighting chance. We don't really have long-term data to really predict where this is going to go for you. But we do know if you optimize your health, you're more likely to recover from it in a way that will leave you where you started. So those are the things that come to mind.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say hey to Rosetta Guy, to Professor Randy Sattler, who is in the house, and also to Audrey Jaycox, who has stopped by and who's here. Yolanda Williams said, "Why do people feel they don't have to tell you that they have been exposed? Is this considered HIPAA?"
No, I don't think. Well, them telling someone else is not HIPAA. HIPAA doesn't regulate that. It regulates somebody else telling a physician telling somebody else about a patient's problem. Not inhibit you telling another individual that you've been exposed to COVID. I mean, I think it's just the stigmata, and it's just it's the kind of behavior that occurs when people think that for one reason or another they'll be shunned, they'll be, folks won't want to be with them for a while, and so people, want to be loved and they want to be cared for. They want to be able to fit in with everybody. But the best thing that they could do if they have been infected is to share that information, because that's an act of love. You're sharing it, and you're making certain that people understand that you're not with them, not because of anything other than you don't want to harm them, or you don't want any harm coming from your relationship and your association with them. So I think it's just most of the time people get sick. They're not likely. They don't care to really just start telling folks. And this is a different kind of situation, because this is an infectious problem. This is a problem that you can share with somebody. But I don't mean to share in terms of the data, but you can share the disease if they don't know and you don't behave in such a manner that you're preventing that by the mitigations.
And this is not a bad thing. You're supposed to tell that you've been exposed, that you haven't.
Unless you're me, you can't do it. Like I remember I saw the reunion show for In Living Color, and they had Benita. I ain't want to gossip. You remember that?
You ain't heard it from me.
Right, you ain't. So I kept me in my clinic as a medical director talking about you ain't heard from me, but James Miller got that COVID. So as healthcare organizations, they're not allowed to share that information. And what's odd about it is it seems like people should know, right? So that's you're trying to protect people while you're trying to protect the person who got it, and you're trying to protect the people that don't have it. But ultimately, the person that's got it is the one that you protect. You cannot be out here telling people's business. That leads to lawsuits, and also it's just people look at you funny. You come back to work and they don't want to be around you. So we have to find other ways to protect each other. And but yeah, certainly, Dr. Miller, you're right. You should be able. I think there's value in sharing it because people may look at you and say, "Wow, you're doing okay," or "You're not doing okay," or whatever. They may learn something from that. So
that's right. Yeah.
So the doctors can't share it, but you should be willing to tell your cousin that you tested positive when you were all sitting at the Christmas dinner table having turkey, having conversation without the mask.
Exactly.
At all. So if you test positive, you need to go back and tell everybody in that house to go be tested. Because your symptoms may be mild, but everyone else's may not. So as a lay person, let's keep everybody healthy, but your doctors will not tell. But I also want to remind you, it is important, extremely important, to be honest with the contact tracers that contact you after you have tested positive. The Illinois Department of Health has a team together, and it's set out in different hospitals that will have contact tracers contact you. Please just tell them who you've been with. They're not going to tell that it came from you, but this is a way to actually begin to slow down COVID. So it leads me back to that question where it talked about that 1.8% jump in 1 week. This is some of the reasons why. I see you guys on social media at the parties with no mask on. Wrong thing to do. Wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
But let's be mindful and let's save other people's lives.
Yeah.
To save other people's lives, and in saving theirs, you can save your own. I want to say hey to my sister girlfriend Melanie Winston, who is here, to my cousin Donna Roberts that's in Oklahoma, who has chimed in. Oh, hey Donna. And Yolanda says thank you to Pastor Deacon Miller, Dr. Miller, for straightening it out and telling you the truth.
All of those titles are correct.
That's right. For sharing it. Thank you so much. Our next question says this new strand of COVID-19 that was in the UK is now in the US and being reported 50% more contagious. I know this may seem like a very broad and crazy question, but how did it get here? And what can we do to stop it? Is this something we should fear?
I don't think it's anything you should fear. You should know. And viruses, this is what they do. Viruses mutate. This is what they do. This is not unusual for viruses to do this, and they're going to continue to do this. The mutation that the reason that we have COVID now, because that's a mutation.
Right.
It was not originally where it is now, but this is what viruses do. And we need to understand that the viruses travel in us. And so when we're breathing, when we inhale things, we can take in those viruses, but when we also exhaling, and we don't have to cough or sneezing. You can be in a room with just talking with people close to one another. And if those viruses are in the nose, when you take the COVID test, many times they put something up your nose or sometimes into your throat, because that's where the viruses are. And so it's important that people understand this. So it's not the virus. The virus is doing what the virus does, and they don't care about what people do. They're happy that we spread them along for other people to catch. So we want to be doing the things that we can do to mitigate that. And that's why usually if you're just having regular conversations, 6 feet is about as far as that virus is going to travel. Okay. And if you obviously, if you get stuff on your hand, you sneeze in your hand or what have you like that, whether you have COVID or not, you should be washing your hands and not touching or spreading that. And you should also maintain that distance, maintain the hand washing, face coverings, because that's how the virus spreads. Now, this is not church, so it's not about whether you believe that or not. This is the facts, okay? Beliefs are for church. This is for facts. And then we're talking about facts here.
All right, Bishop Mason. I got you. I got you, Bishop Mason. I got you. I got you. Hattie Lake says hello, and she got you too. So we got you, Bishop Mason. Exactly. Exactly what is pneumonia, and why is it so dangerous and even deadly?
That's a great question. Pneumonia takes place when there's an infection in your lungs, and the reaction to the infection essentially spreads to the tissues, so oxygen can't get to the blood. And even though we've got antibiotics, bacterial pneumonias still tend to be big problems. And that's why we have pneumonia vaccines. You can also get a pneumonia from the virus like COVID. And so you get this inflammatory reaction in the lungs, the lungs get fluid in the lungs, then the air can't get to the blood.
Yeah. And it's really
if you start to look at what the tissue and how the lung is, think of the lung as a kind of a spongy kind of tissue. And so when a sponge filled with water, it becomes heavier, and therefore you can't really do the other things that you normally would be doing. So when that lung has fluid in it, you can't breathe, you can't move the air because of the density of the fluid. So pneumonia is the situation that creates inflammation and fluids and decrease the normal functionality of the lungs, and that's why it's dangerous, because the lung is an important organ in terms of exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide, which are you without the proper balance, you're gonna create other kinds of health problems for you, and even can take your life.
Yeah. And there's something called a pneumonia vaccine, by the way. And the pneumonia vaccine it reduces your risk for pneumonia by 70%. And I was pleasantly surprised today at clinic as my nurse was recommending vaccines. I had a very nice number of people who were very interested in the flu and pneumonia at a clip that was higher than what I've previously experienced. I think these conversations are starting to resonate with people. But imagine you get COVID, which is going to cause all this inflammatory response leading to the same fluid accumulation that Dr. Miller just spoke of. But then imagine you also got a pneumonia vaccine. So maybe it'll give your body just enough time to clear whatever the COVID is doing, and it doesn't transition to pneumonia. And what I've seen is a lot of people who are dying from COVID are dying from pneumonia. So when you're in a position to get not only the COVID vaccine, consider the pneumonia vaccine as well as a way to prevent yourself from getting ill. So.
Now, should you take these vaccines together or at separate times?
COVID is a different animal. They'll probably keep that separate at this point. But in general, I've given people flu and pneumonia today, pneumonia and shingles, so we tend to, it's just like a baby. You know how we give them 100 shots at one visit? You're actually able to get multiple vaccines. The only thing with COVID is that we don't have, we're so busy watching COVID that we want to probably keep that separate until we see enough people, and then that'll probably change. But from what I can see in our health system, we keep it separate.
Yeah.
All right, great. This next question says, lately there has been something I call an attack of heart failure on Black men under the age of 65. My family members, friends, and friends of friends have all been victims of this. Can you share some light on details to exactly what it is? Can we stop it? Can we cure it? Can we reverse it?
Hmm. Well, I'll be honest, Graham, this is the first time I wanted to be you since you're not a black male, but I I don't know why they keep messing with black men. I just don't understand. But yeah, I think congestive heart failure is a very common condition. I think that as I deal with a lot of obese people in my clinic, and because I deal with a lot of that, I see a little bit more of that than maybe the typical doctor would see, because when you are overweight, it puts a lot of pressure on your heart. When you think about heart failure, you think about, we learned in school there was systolic and diastolic. And with the systolic, you're just not able to pump hard enough. And with diastolic, you're not feeling the heart the way you should. So, and when you don't do that, you then back up fluid into your lungs. So that's when you get short of breath, and you sometimes back up fluid into your ankles. And that's why people with congestive heart failure have problems with swelling in their ankles. But, the causes, as we get older, we worry about, things like heart disease. So if you don't get enough blood to your heart, like ischemia, if you can damage the heart, that can cause problems. You can have problems with the blood vessels, having a high blood pressure. So imagine you're trying to pump the blood out of the left side of your heart into that big artery, but the pressure is high. And so your heart has to literally get bigger, bigger, bigger. And eventually that muscle is strong in the beginning, but it'll get floppy and it won't really work as well. So you have these different reasons for it, rather it's, ischemia, which is the kind of heart attack scenario, high blood pressure. And then these young folks that fall off the basketball court, they get, dilated they get cardiomyopathy, where the heart gets floppy and they just didn't realize they had a problem. So I think, it's hard for me I haven't heard the data why it's more common in general, but I will say what's common in our community is obesity. So if you see a uptick in obesity by itself, that would explain a lot of these problems. And I think that's why we spend so much energy trying to help people with their lifestyle, because we can give you beta blockers to help your heart and all these, ACE inhibitors, these different types of medicines to help your heart. But really it's about, let's not get to that point. Let's not stress the heart and make it work so hard. So I think it's really the obesity epidemic, I think, that's causing people to be at risk for that. But I hadn't really read the particular study that speaks to this new problem, but it's pretty obvious in my practice that's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, one of the other, a couple of the other entities, obviously, in terms of black males, is hypertension. Yeah. And hypertension that's not uncontrolled. If it's controlled, it's not, you don't have the same problem. But uncontrolled hypertension also puts stress on your heart. Yeah. And again, as Dr. Hampton was saying, extra work for the heart causes that muscles to swell up and become what we call hypertrophic. And it doesn't, most muscles, when we see people with muscle, we sort of look at them as being, healthy and so to speak. And that's, so your skeletal muscle, that's probably all right. But however, even when you look at skeletal muscles, there are certain things that real muscular person can't, they lose certain function. Most of your real muscular folks won't be sprinters because the muscle doesn't stretch out and is able to sprint. So the heart muscle is a muscle that the heart is the pump. It is responsible for moving the blood through your vessels, and every tissue in your body needs blood in order to be able to survive. So anything that will cause the heart to become weakened can contribute to congestive heart failure, as you were saying, hypertension. Yeah. Even alcohol is another big one, and so drinking too much alcohol for too long a period of time can also do that. People have heart attacks and cause damage to the heart muscle. Certainly, that does it as well. So so those are conditions that affect probably all men, but certainly the hypertension seems to be a bigger problem we see that more commonly in black men, and sometimes men tend to be macho and they don't like to go to doctors and get all those evaluation done and taking medications, and that's not macho. That's not good sense.
Well, I can tell you why they're not taking it, Dr. Mason. You know. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Mason, why do these young black men don't want to take their blood pressure medicine? I think you know the answer to that.
Oh yeah, it affects their erections.
Amen. That's it. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a young man.
I understand, but man, being dead is not a good option. So
That's right.
you know, we gotta come
You
up.
don't get good erections when you're dead either.
No. And if you do, you can't do anything with it.
No, but I think, Tony, Dr. Hampton, to your point, this is a very serious issue. You know, and as a urologist, when I was in practice, this was the number one thing that I saw was erectile dysfunction. And obviously, since most of my practice was Black, you know, I saw it in all age groups. And it is a very devastating situation for men and a source of a lot of angst and anxiety and tension and relationship issues, all kinds of things happen. And maybe we'll do a show talking about that at some point in the future. But it is, and I just don't want it to be brushed off lightly, because it is it's a cause of why men will stop, to your point, Dr. Hampton, they'll stop taking that medication if they think that that's what's done it. So that's why we can talk about, there's studies that have shown, there was a nice JAMA article that was done in 2009 that looked at a group of men who were actually going to get a study for another drug for prostate cancer, but they wanted, because the prostate cancer drug that they were testing did cause erectile dysfunction. So they wanted to find out how many men had erectile dysfunction before they went into the study. And when the study was published, what they found that erectile dysfunction is really the canary in the coal mine. What I mean by that, usually erectile dysfunction will occur before some of the other more serious, what we call cardiovascular, which means heart and blood vessel diseases. So men who had erectile dysfunction were far more likely to end up having heart attacks, strokes, so much so that when I was in practice, we did a joint meeting with the group of cardiologists at the National Medical Association, because we found that this was the earliest sign that, and many men who I saw were undiagnosed diabetics, they were undiagnosed hypertensives, they had all kinds of problems. And I don't want to take up a lot of time with it, but it's a very serious problem that if a young person is suffering from this, what we did is we needed to make sure that they got to an internist and got the appropriate workups to help determine whether or not they had other problems.
Absolutely.
Wow. So they should look at this as a plus, because this is a plus.
Not erectile the problems.
Well, I mean, it opens the door for you to see if there are other bigger things going on. So it's like that tale, go get this fixed, so these things won't happen.
Well, you know, Nikki, what happened is that a lot of times men for a long time were told that if you were having an erection problems, it was all in your head. You know, it was brushed off. And I can't tell you how many men had and you know, men, Black men in particular, are always, I shouldn't say always, but many times, and there have been studies that have shown that we don't get the same care as other men. And sometimes our complaints are not taken as seriously as they are in other men. And so we ended up as a group of urologists working with our primary care doctor colleagues, working out protocols that when men came in and complained of erectile dysfunction, that there was a series of tests they needed to get. And I can't tell you how many diabetics, how many people that had elevated lipids, the cholesterols were off the chart, and they came in for erectile dysfunction.
Right. Yeah. That's like another door that, yeah.
So to the 32 people who just text me, we are going to have a show just about that.
Thank you.
We're going to have a show just about it. Hopefully, we may be able to try to squeeze it in before the end of the month. So get ready, Dr. Mason. But 32 people just text me. So I see your text messages, Pro. We are going to have a show dedicated to Black men, because it's going to be to all men, but we're going to concentrate on Black men. So you're going to have to text me back in all caps, Black men. I read the text at the same time when I was talking. It will be about all men, but we will have a special concentration on Black men. So
and I can't tell you how I can't tell you how erectile dysfunction goes to the core of a man. I'm gonna tell you, it creates depression, and it creates discourse in the marriage or in the relationships, and I don't want to go into it much now because we wrote a book about this, a book called Making Love Again a long time ago. Back in the 80s, I wrote a book and we talked about it, and we talked about it with their partners, because oftentimes their partners got blamed for the issue. So there's a lot of elements to it.
All right. So and you're still texting me, so know that it's coming. And I'm telling you on the broadcast that it is coming. Brenda Jones, formerly of the Illinois Health Department, says, "Wow, thank you so much." Yolanda Williams says, perfect information. We will make sure that we invite the men. Yolanda Williams also said, "We love this platform and you all speak the truth. Some we don't want to hear, especially about our food, but we need it to be said."
Dr. Terry Mason.
What happened?
The reason I comment on that, I was at a health fair a few years ago with Dr. Terry Mason for Palooza Festival at the senior building. And I asked a question about diet. And he was telling us how we need to eat more of our natural fruits, our natural vegetables, our grains, those things from the motherland that'll keep us healthy. And I know I had rib tips, short ribs, and all that in the refrigerator waiting on me. And he made me throw that out, And ever since that meeting or that seminar, and health fairs are very important, I'm always thinking about what Dr. Terry Mason said about, I'm like, what am I going to eat? What I can't eat the porridges. I can't eat Italian beefs. I can't do the rib tip. That's in the food deserts. We're surrounded by a lot of food deserts. So when you're hungry, I ate Popeyes 3 or 4 times a week. Don't do it anymore. Twice a month, but not twice a week. But I think it's very important that doctors also build a rapport with their patients. I'm one that's not sickly, but when I started having health issues and going to the doctor, I felt more comfortable as my doctor talked more about it. He talked to me about what's going on with you. So I built a rapport, and he wasn't a Black doctor. But at the same time, I didn't have a problem with the prostate exam because, okay, I know this guy. He's my doctor. So I can take certain exams and not lie in the examining room where I feel better. Because when they take the test, they're going to know that you lied. So how do you get past telling your doctor, hey, I'm not comfortable with you. I don't trust you. I don't know you. Should I ask for a second opinion without embarrassing my primary? These are all fears that we as men, it took a hell of a try just to get us in the door. And then when we're in there, we're getting poked, we're getting prodded, we're getting diagnosed, we're getting all these things that we never talked about. And he never took the time to get to know me, to make me comfortable, to reveal things that I should have revealed from day one. So yeah, this is a great platform, and I'm glad to have professionals that make me at ease to say, well, I won't feel bad if I ask for a second opinion.
Mr. Rogers, I want to thank you for that, because that was really important. Because I can tell you, having been in that practice, and I won't go to a lot of it right now, but men didn't have a lot of people that they could go to and become vulnerable. And when you start talking about your sexual history, that probably is the most vulnerable you'll ever get when you start talking about the truth of it. And so one of the things, and I'll say this because it just brought it back to me, one of the things that I miss the most about not being in practice anymore is not having that safe space for men and not patients in general, but particularly my men to come in. And men they hurt. They're going through a lot of things. And some of it is not necessarily medical, but it creates medical problems because there's all kinds of depression. There's all kinds of things that, men, and when you talked about, when I could talk to men about erectile dysfunction, it disarmed them. When you get to that level of trust, now you can talk to men about other things.
Yes.
And have that feeling of a safe, guarded space that what you're talking about in that room stays right in that room. Mm-hmm. It goes nowhere to nobody. And I can tell you stories about some of the things that over the 26 years that I was in practice, that losing that safe space is the one thing that I regret the most about not being in practice anymore.
Yeah. Add one other little thing is that the one thing that I learned over my 40 years of practice is that there's a lot of myth, especially when it comes to Black men. There's a lot of myth about their sexuality, about their health, and so part of our responsibility is to try to get rid of some of the myth and get an understanding so that people can make better choices and better judgment. And one thing that I experienced over my years was that as we began sometime with conversation, and we began to discuss some of the things that people thought were the way things were, some of their myths, and as we had those conversations, it created a relationship that probably wouldn't otherwise have been created between me and that patient. That they felt more comfortable talking about it. That otherwise they just would not have. When I found out with men, when men come to the doctor, they come for one specific thing, and that is that one thing. They aren't uninterested in talking to you about 5 or 6 other, even though they might be 5 or 6 other things that need to be addressed. And until you can sort of pull down that curtain and pull down the defense mechanism, you're going to have a difficult time. So part of that is helping them to feel comfortable with you and to discuss. I mean, I usually will try to begin to have my conversation about things other than their health, but to get them to start to feeling that they can talk to me, feel comfortable discussing whatever it is.
Yes.
It's an important thing that you have to do with the patients. And so over time, those myths are still there. They're still circulating. And but when I realize that I have a guy who's comfortable enough to begin to discuss it, then I have a person that I can really help.
Yeah, it took me 4 separate visits before I start discussing my overall health issues or things that I'm concerned with, because I always felt rushed.
Yeah,
I always felt like he ain't hearing me. I'm telling him my ankles are swollen. Why are my ankles swollen? I'm sleeping too much. I'm falling asleep in meetings. He said, "Oh, well, you should just sleep more." Well, that's not, I don't believe that, but it's really a relationship that people have to build with their doctor, and I think that first contact is very crucial when you're meeting a new patient. And I don't want to have a discussion with my doctor while there's a female nurse in the office in the same examining room. I don't want to talk about why I'm really here. I don't want to show things if I'm having a rash or breakout or a jock itch or anything like that I deal with or men deal with. And you have a nurse standing there. And I was like, well, I'm not going to talk about it today. I just emailed him. And then that just goes on to 6 months down to the next visit. So, yeah, if you guys need me to create a safe haven, men only, brother to brother space where we can incorporate that into our health fair, I will put that together for you guys. And we can start a whole new movement.
Well, our FQHCs, they do a men's health month in June, and it's just specifically for men. Our FQHCs do that. Most of them do. And actually, Near North Health started it, and they have a great following with it.
I think that's Kathleen Jackson, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Isn't that Kathleen Jackson that oversees that?
I believe it may be Kathleen that oversees it, but Bernice Thomas Mims, who is the president of Near North, was the one who actually, that was her brain baby. That was her brain.
Okay.
And they do an awesome job over at Near North. And a lot of the other FQHCs are doing that. So that whole month of June is dedicated to men's health. And the women put together a program in the beginning, like an opening, but it's all male generated, and it's done.
And I know Providence Hospital has a men only health day as well that I participate once a year, which is great. Dee Clayton was over that when she was our community liaison. But we're going to get it together.
Yeah, Dee was awesome. Terry, Sean Kennedy says, Dr. Mason add a PowerPoint presentation to go along with the erectile dysfunction. So Sean, let me tell you, Dr. Mason got some PowerPoint that will tell you.
No, I thank Sean. I thank Sean for that.
Shared. Dr. Mason will make you throw some things away. Dr. Mason did make me clean out my potato chip closet one day.
Oh yeah, I haven't talked to him since. that was the last conversation I had with Dr. Mason. I said, I'm not talking to him anymore. I got to go sneak and eat now. Okay.
No. Y'all demonize me now. It's all done out of love. It's all done out of love. No, I know the presentation that Sean is talking about.
No, he wants you to make sure that you add one. He hasn't seen them yet, so don't make sure.
Well, I've done some men's meetings. Brothers get together like this on the Zoom, and I just share the screen, and we start talking about erectile dysfunction, and I just go through the whole thing from, just medication through injections to penile implant and everything. Show everything and non-edited.
So we're going to discuss your PowerPoint before we show it live on Facebook. Sheila says, I have sarcoidosis. Why does the sarcoidosis swell my hands and cause pain so bad?
Wow, that's a great question. And sarcoidosis is one of those mysterious diseases that can affect different people differently. It usually affects the lungs, it can affect the skin, it can affect the liver, and it can affect the joints as well. And there's actually a form of arthritis that we call sarcoidosis, related arthritis. There is treatment for it, and usually it doesn't last as long and doesn't need to be as damaging as rheumatoid arthritis. But it's one of those strange things about this disease. It's a mysterious disease that we don't really understand very well. Most of the time, it will go away on its own and doesn't last forever, but there are cases that tend to be longer term.
All right. Well, our time has drawn very near. So I'm going to ask this last question, and I know we had other questions that we needed to go over, but this last question actually kind of gets us ready for our next Monday night. The person says, I'm relatively very healthy. I haven't had any illnesses, and my COVID test was negative. However, I don't feel right. I really can't explain it. Could the stress of everything that is happening in our society, crazy gun violence in our city, number 45 temper tantrums and antics, the fear of the virus, the list goes on. Could this be causing me to feel this way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Stress and depression and all these kinds of things really does make you feel bad. And so even though you may have otherwise generally good health physically, but the mental aspect of your life and of the things that are going on around you, they're going to have an effect on you. We don't live on an island by ourselves. So whatever else is going on will affect us. And we see, we're seeing, every day when you're looking at the news, and we're seeing the number of people that are dying from COVID. All these things are stressing people out, and we understand that. And this is just, those are things that we have to help folks to deal with, because until it go away, you're going to have to deal with that. But certainly, all the things that are going on. I mean, the fact that we're not as communal during this period of time, that also affect people. People not, we're asking folks not to go out and do some of the things that they normally would be doing. All these things will affect how you feel in general.
So remember, next Monday night, we're having the conversation about stress, depression, anxiety. We're having an in-depth conversation about that. We saw your messages, we saw your questions, we get the text messages, we got all of that. So we framed a meeting around it, just like we're going to do one about men and erectile dysfunction. So we try to keep our promises as much as we can. Chris Hogan says, thanks for covering the respiratory. My airways are challenged when it's cold. Linda Johnson says, again, thank you for excellent dialogue. Yes, since Dr. Mason talked about them pinto beans, I have been eating my vegetables just about every day. So Yolanda says she can't wait. Sean is sitting laughing faces. Brenda Jones is saying so much, and Melody is saying great conversation. Audrey Jaycox is talking about great conversation. But you know what? Until next Monday. What is our until next Monday, Doug? What's until next Monday?
I'm going to say, check with your healthcare provider, check with your community health clinic, check with everybody in terms of when you can get the vaccination. The right one is the one you can get as soon as possible. It's going to be safe. It won't change your DNA, but it does have a chance to change your life and change your community.
Dr. Mason, your until next Monday? You're muted, Dr. Mason. You're muted.
I said, take care of it. Until next week, take care of yourself. Do the best you can do for taking care of yourself. You only get one body, and you only have one time when it's in great shape. So just keep it that way. Know that we do this out of love for the people that are listening.
Dr. James Miller, your until next Monday?
Until next Monday, again, look up instead of looking down. Know that the end is in sight, and we just got to keep marching on, and keep being careful, and keep protecting ourselves and each other.
Dr. Tony Hampton, until next Monday.
Until next Monday, I want you guys to recognize there's a lot of hope in the air now. I don't know what's so special about a New Year's, but it's just special. It's special because we have change among us. We have change politically. We have change with the vaccine, and it's just time for hope. So, but one thing you have to understand is that things don't just happen by themselves. The decisions you make today will determine your tomorrow. So, so be careful what you put in your mouth. Be careful what you put in your brain, because all of these things are going to affect whether or not you make the right decisions. Don't consume things on Facebook and social media that are things that you already know. When you start hearing the doctor down the street talking crazy, you knew she was crazy when she started talking. And don't get your information from people who do not have the capacity to, just first of all, if somebody's a doctor doesn't mean that they making sense. If that's one doctor in the corner saying don't get a vaccine because it's a conspiracy, you need to look at her credentials or his credentials. If you have spiritual leaders guiding you, they are your spiritual leaders. They're not your scientists. So allow them to guide you, but don't make decisions that are health related. You go to the healthcare people for that. You go to the accountant for that, with stuff related to accounting, et cetera. So I just want you to be careful. because there's so much stuff out there that's scaring people, and I just can't believe it. So just be careful what you feed your body, and be careful what you feed your mind. And if you do that, you'll be more prepared to make a better decision.
And if Jasmine was here, she would say mindfulness.
Yes.
She would definitely say mindfulness right now.
Right.
She would. So, as we always say, join us right here next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel, right here, Monday night, 7 p.m. And remember to do these following things. Wash your hands really good, at least 20 seconds. Sing the birthday song. Get it done. I don't know which one you want to sing. You can sing either one. Make sure that you social distance. So stretch your arms out. And if someone is touching you or you're touching them and you're just a little too close, just ask them to scoot over just a little bit. Like Dr. Mason said earlier, those droplets 6 feet apart can really save your life. And most of all, make sure that you wear your face covering over your nose and mouth. Covering those two areas is the best thing to do. Make sure you wear your face covering, and we will see you again right here next Monday. Thank you so much and have a great evening.